Secrets buried in time, mysteries whispered in the shadows. Welcome to Greatest Mysteries and Crime, where we unravel the enigmas of the past and dive deep into the dark unknown. Some mysteries are written in the stars, some in the shadows, and some are etched into the very fabric of our reality, where people simply vanish without a trace. Today, we're diving into 7 of the creepiest disappearances in modern history. Each story defies logic, leaving behind questions that remain unanswered to this day. Settle in, because these are tales that will send shivers down your spine. Imagine you're starting a new chapter in life, leaving behind a troubled past for a hopeful future. That was Rico Harris's plan. But somewhere along his journey, the future he envisioned disappeared with him. Rico Harris was a former Harlem Globetrotter, a basketball star with an imposing 6'9" frame and an undeniable talent. But his life off the court was far from glamorous. Struggles with substance abuse derailed his career, and for years, Rico wrestled with the demons that kept him from achieving lasting stability. By 2014, though, things seemed to be looking up. Rico had reconciled with his fiancée, Jennifer Song, and was preparing to move to Seattle to start anew. But this journey would mark the beginning of one of the most haunting, unsolved mysteries in recent history. On October 9th, 2014, Rico set off from Alhambra, California to Seattle. He called Jennifer during the drive, telling her he was taking a break to rest. But by October 14th, when he still hadn't arrived, concern turned into panic. That day, authorities found his black Nissan Maxima abandoned near Cache Creek Regional Park in Yolo County, California. Inside the car, police discovered his wallet, phone, and a backpack of personal items. Outside, footprints led away from the car into the wilderness, but they stopped abruptly, as if Rico had vanished into thin air. Rico's disappearance has puzzled investigators and inspired countless theories. Did he suffer a mental health crisis and wander off? Did he meet foul play in the remote area? Or could the vast, unforgiving wilderness of Northern California have claimed his life? To this day, no answers have been found, and Rico Harris's disappearance remains a haunting enigma. Rico's story leaves us with more questions than answers. How does a man simply vanish into the wilderness without a trace? Our next story takes us to the bustling city of Columbus, Ohio, where a young man entered a bar and was never seen again. Brian Shaffer's case is one of the most perplexing urban mysteries of all time. How can someone enter a crowded bar in the heart of a city and simply disappear? Brian Shaffer was a 27-year-old medical student with a promising future. On the night of March 31st, 2006, Brian decided to celebrate the start of spring break with friends. They began the evening bar hopping around Columbus, Ohio, ending at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a popular campus hangout. At 2 a.m., surveillance footage captured Brian talking to 2 women outside the bar. Moments later, he re-entered the bar, and then he vanished. Despite extensive reviews of security footage, there was no record of Brian ever leaving the building. Police scoured the area for weeks, searching every corner of the bar, nearby buildings, and even sewers. Theories ranged from accidental death to foul play, but no evidence ever surfaced. Could Brian have slipped out through an unmonitored exit, or was there a more sinister explanation? Brian's disappearance raises a chilling question. How can someone vanish in a place filled with people and cameras? But not all vanishings happen in the public eye. Our next case takes us to Bulgaria, where a young tourist's paranoia turned into a sprint into the unknown. Lars Mittank's disappearance is a haunting blend of paranoia, mystery, and tragedy. What began as a vacation with friends turned into a nightmare. Lars, a 28-year-old German tourist, traveled to Bulgaria with friends in June 2014. What started as a relaxing holiday turned strange when Lars got into a fight over football teams, resulting in an ear injury. He was advised not to fly home due to the injury, and his friends left while Lars stayed behind. Lars began exhibiting paranoid behavior. He told his mother over the phone that people were following him and trying to kill him. On July 8th, 2014, Lars entered Varna Airport. Surveillance footage showed him suddenly fleeing the terminal, leaving behind his luggage and running into the nearby woods. To this day, Lars has not been found. Was he suffering from a mental health crisis? Was he under the influence of drugs or experiencing paranoia from his injury? Or was someone truly after him? Lars Mittank's final sprint into the wilderness left behind a trail of fear and unanswered questions. But not all disappearances involve such sudden, dramatic moments. Some unfold quietly, with subtle signs of distress building until the person simply vanishes. Our next case takes us to Canada, where a young woman's peculiar behavior foreshadowed her mysterious disappearance. Not all disappearances are sudden and chaotic. Some unfold slowly, leaving behind subtle signs that, in hindsight, feel like pieces of a puzzle. Emma Fillipoff's story is one such case, a haunting tale of a young woman whose strange behavior foreshadowed her unexplained disappearance. Emma Fillipoff was a 26-year-old artist and poet who had been living in Victoria, British Columbia. By all accounts, Emma was a free spirit, deeply introspective but increasingly troubled. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Emma had been staying at a women's shelter, citing concerns about her safety but refusing to explain further. On November 28, 2012, Emma was seen at a nearby store where she purchased a prepaid cell phone and a $200 gift card. Surveillance footage captured her movements, and her behavior seemed hesitant, as though she were avoiding someone or something. Later that evening, she called her mother, expressing confusion and fear. Her mother rushed to Victoria, but by the time she arrived, Emma was gone. Emma was last seen standing barefoot on the street near the Empress Hotel, speaking with a police officer who noted her odd demeanor. She told him she was fine, and he let her go. Minutes later, she vanished. Despite massive search efforts, including the release of the Eerie surveillance footage, Emma has never been found. Her belongings, including her shoes and a journal filled with cryptic writings, were discovered, but they offered no concrete leads. Theories about Emma's disappearance range from a voluntary decision to vanish and start over, to foul play, to a mental health crisis that led her into harm's way. Her family continues to hold out hope for her return, but Emma's case remains one of Canada's most chilling mysteries. Emma Fillipoff's story is filled with haunting clues, each raising more questions than answers. But what if someone disappears, not into an urban landscape, but into the wilderness? Our next case takes us into the dense forests of North Carolina, where a young girl's midnight journey led to one of the most baffling disappearances in modern history. It's every parent's worst nightmare, waking up to find your child missing. But what makes Usha Degree's story so chilling is that she left her home willingly and walked straight into the unknown. 9-year-old Usha Degree lived in Shelby, North Carolina, with her parents and older brother. She was a bright, happy child who excelled in school and sports. On the night of February 13th, 2000, Usha went to bed after a normal day. But in the early hours of Valentine's Day, she packed a small bag and left her home in the middle of a storm. Several witnesses reported seeing her walking along a highway alone. When a truck driver tried to approach her, she ran into the woods and disappeared. The search for Usha yielded only a few puzzling clues. Her backpack was discovered a year later, buried in a construction site 30 miles from her home. Inside were her personal belongings, neatly packed. Investigators also found a book that didn't belong to her, deepening the mystery. Why would a child willingly leave her home in the dead of night? Some believe she may have been lured away by someone she trusted. Others think she could have been planning an adventure that tragically ended in abduction. Despite decades of investigation, Asha's disappearance remains unsolved. Asha's disappearance haunts her family to this day, a case that remains as mysterious now as it was in 2000. But not all disappearances involve children. Our next case centers on 3 women who vanished from their home in the middle of the night, leaving behind a mystery that has baffled investigators for over 30 years. On a warm June night in Springfield, Missouri, 3 women went to sleep in a quiet suburban home, only to vanish by morning. There were no signs of struggle, no screams heard, and no clues left behind, just an ordinary house filled with eerie silence. This is the story of the Springfield 3, one of the most perplexing disappearance cases in modern history. Susie Streeter and Stacy McCall had every reason to celebrate. The 2 best friends had just graduated from Kickapoo High School on June 6, 1992. That night, they attended a series of graduation parties, laughing, reminiscing, and dreaming about the future. They decided to spend the night at Susie's house, where her mother, Cheryl Levitt, lived. It was supposed to be a brief stop before heading to a water park the next morning. By all accounts, it was an ordinary night in an ordinary neighborhood. But sometime between 2:15 a.m., when the girls were last seen, and 9 a.m., when friends arrived at the house, Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl disappeared without a trace. When friends arrived that morning, they found the door unlocked. Inside, nothing seemed amiss at first glance. The women's purses were lined up neatly in the living room. Their cars were still parked in the driveway, and Susie's dog, Cinnamon, was agitated but unharmed. Yet something was deeply wrong. None of the women were there. Closer inspection revealed small, unsettling details. The porch light was shattered, and though the broken glass had been swept away, the bulb had not been replaced. Friends reported hearing the phone ring repeatedly while they were in the house, but when they answered, the caller hung up. This bizarre mix of normalcy and strangeness left investigators scratching their heads. In the early days of the investigation, police explored numerous leads. One chilling report came from a witness who claimed to have seen a green Dodge van in the neighborhood early that morning. The driver, they said, appeared to be struggling with a woman inside, and her voice could be heard screaming, "Help me." Despite this, neither the van nor the witness was ever located. Investigators also considered the possibility of a known attacker. Cheryl Levitt, a hairstylist, had recently experienced strange harassment calls at her workplace. Could someone from her past have been involved? Another theory suggested the women were taken by a group of perpetrators who meticulously planned the abduction. Over the years, the case has attracted high-profile suspects, including convicted kidnapper Robert Craig Cox. While Cox claimed to know what happened to the women, his statements were inconsistent, and no concrete evidence tied him to the crime. Today, over 30 years later, the Springfield 3 remain missing. The house on East Delmar Street, where their lives were stolen away, still stands, a silent testament to an unspeakable crime. For the families of Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl, hope and grief exist in an unending cycle. Without answers, their loved ones remain trapped in a mystery that feels both too big to solve and too close to forget. The disappearance of the Springfield 3 shows us how a single night can unravel into an endless mystery. But what happens when someone disappears under the watchful eyes of the world? Our final case brings us to a quiet vacation town in Portugal, where the world watched in horror as a 3-year-old girl vanished into thin air. In the idyllic seaside town of Praia da Luz, Portugal, a young girl's disappearance would captivate the world and spark one of the largest missing persons investigations in history. This is the case of Madeleine McCann, whose story continues to haunt the hearts of millions. In May 2007, Jerry and Kate McCann, both doctors from the United Kingdom, travelled to Praia da Luz with their 3 young children. It was a peaceful getaway, filled with beach days and family dinners. On the evening of May 3rd, the McCanns put their children to bed in their ground floor holiday apartment and joined friends for dinner at a nearby tapas restaurant. The adults took turns checking on the children throughout the evening. Everything seemed fine until Kate's 10 p.m. check. She returned to find the bedroom window open, the shutters raised, and Madeleine's bed empty. Panic swept through the complex as staff and guests joined the frantic search for Madeleine. Police were called, but their initial response was slow and disorganized. Hours turned into days, and Madeleine's face began appearing on news broadcasts around the globe. The haunting image of her wide, innocent eyes became a symbol of hope and despair. As the investigation unfolded, tensions between Portuguese police and the McCanns grew. The parents, initially treated as victims, were later named suspects in the case. Theories swirled in every direction. Did an intruder abduct Madeleine? Could it have been a targeted crime by human traffickers? Or was it, as some suggested, a tragic accident covered up by the family? Despite exhaustive searches, no clear answers emerged. Years later, a new lead brought fresh attention to the case. In 2020, German authorities named Christian Bruckner, a convicted sex offender, as a suspect. He had been in Praia da Luz at the time of Madeleine's disappearance, but no charges have been filed. Madeleine's disappearance remains one of the most well-known missing persons cases in modern history. For her parents, Jerry and Kate, hope is both a lifeline and a torment. They continue to believe that their daughter is alive, waiting to be found. For the world, Madeleine's case is a reminder of how quickly innocence can be stolen, and how far we are from understanding the darkest corners of our humanity. Madeleine McCann's disappearance is a painful reminder of how fragile our lives can be. Like the others on this list, her story leaves us with questions that may never be answered. But perhaps the most haunting part of all these disappearances is the silence they leave behind. These disappearances remind us of the fragility of life and the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. Each story is a haunting reminder that sometimes reality is stranger and far darker than fiction. Which case do you find the most chilling? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more unsolved mysteries and chilling tales.